From The Council's Greatest Mistake, Underestimating Earth. The chamber of the Galactic Council stretched wider than any cathedral on Earth. Its walls glowed with silver light. Its ceiling was a dome of crystal glass through which 1,000 stars glittered. Around the vast circular table sat the rulers of empires so old their histories were measured in millennia. Their voices echoed proud and heavy as they argued, bargained, and laughed. And at the far end of that circle, and so small that some barely noticed, sat the flag of Earth. The humans had been invited only recently. They were newcomers, a young species barely stepping into the stars. To most of the council, they were little more than a curiosity, a people with no great fleets, no vast armies, no ancient wisdom. Their presence was tolerated, not respected. That day, the council debated the balance of power. Fleets and armies were counted, borders redrawn, alliances weighed like coins in a market. Voices thundered, claws struck the table, the sound of arrogance filling the air. Then a question was raised. "What of Earth?" one counselor asked with a smirk. "What do these fragile newcomers offer? What power do they hold? What strength lies on that small blue world?" The chamber erupted in laughter. "Strength?" another scoffed. "Their lives are too short to master anything." "They are soft," said another. "Their bones break, their skin tears, their hearts stop in an instant." "Prey," growled a warrior from a predator race. "They look at us with fear and call it diplomacy." The laughter rolled like thunder, echoing through the chamber, each word cutting deeper into Earth's dignity. Even those who did not laugh said nothing to stop it, but not all joined in. One figure, older than most, sat in silence. His skin was pale, his eyes dark with worry. He was no friend of humanity, but he was a student of history. He had studied patterns, wars, and the rise and fall of empires. And what he saw in humans unsettled him. When the laughter calmed, he spoke. "You are all blind," he said softly. His voice was low, but it cut through the chamber like a blade. "You look at humans and see fragility. You see short lives, broken bodies, a small world, but you do not see what lies beneath. I have studied them. I have read their hidden history. And I tell you this." He paused, and the silence pressed against every ear. "You do not understand what they are capable of." The chamber stared at him, and then, as if his words were nothing but smoke, the laughter began again, louder this time. "Capable?" one counselor jeered. "Of breaking faster than others? Of crying for mercy when war comes? Do not waste our time with tales of weaklings." The warnings were ignored. The voices of arrogance drowned him out. The council had already made its judgment. Humanity was nothing, a fragile race to be used, mocked, or forgotten. But the old historian lowered his eyes, writing quietly in his journal. "The council laughs now. But I fear the day when humans stop smiling, when their silence ends, for I have seen their eyes, and in them I saw storms waiting to break." On the far side of the chamber, Earth's ambassador sat in silence. He did not answer the insults. He did not defend his people. His hands were folded, his eyes calm. But inside, behind the stillness, something else lived. Patience, memory, and a promise. For while the council laughed, humanity listened. And humanity never forgot. That was the beginning, the day the council sealed its greatest mistake. The chamber of the Galactic Council was filled with bright lights and endless voices. Stars glimmered outside the giant glass dome, but inside, the rulers of 100 worlds looked down on the small flag of Earth with mocking eyes. To them, humans were newcomers, weak creatures from a young planet. They believed Earth had nothing special, but there was something the council never understood. Humanity carried a past so heavy, so bloody, that even humans themselves rarely spoke of it. The records showed Earth asking politely for peace, for trade, for a seat among the stars. They arrived with smiles and open hands. They offered medicine, art, and machines. But in secret, they kept their true history locked away, the history of endless wars, of survival on a world filled with predators, storms, and famine. One alien, A historian from a distant world noticed something strange. He studied Earth's files day and night. In the reports, humans shared songs, poetry, and inventions. But the historian whispered to his peers, "Where are their wars? Every species has wars. Why are humans hiding theirs?" No one listened. The council laughed, saying, "Wars? What wars could such fragile beings fight? Look at them. They bleed too easily, they live too shortly. They are nothing but prey trying to act like equals." But the historian could not forget the way humans looked at him when he asked about their past. They smiled, but their eyes carried storms. In quiet corners of the galaxy, rumors began to spread. Some traders whispered of scars they saw on human soldiers. Others told stories of strange training camps on Earth, where people pushed themselves to the edge of death only to rise stronger. Still, no official records existed. It was as if humanity had locked its greatest secrets behind invisible walls. The council ignored the whispers. They believed humans were simply too embarrassed to show their weakness. "They want to look proud," one counselor laughed, "but there is nothing to fear." But deep down, the humans never forgot who they were. Their history was written not in books, but in the soil of battlefields, in the bones of fallen empires, in the silent prayers of survivors. Centuries of blood had shaped them. On Earth, they had fought with stones, then with steel, then with fire. They had faced hunger, disease, and extinction again and again, and every time they survived. That survival was not luck. It was instinct. It was their nature. When Earth's ambassador walked into the council chamber, dressed in simple gray, he looked ordinary compared to the shining robes of alien leaders. But there was something in his silence that unsettled even the proudest warriors of other species. He never boasted. He never threatened. He only watched, listened, and waited, and that waiting was the most dangerous thing of all. One night, as the council celebrated another victory over a rebellious world, the historian approached the human ambassador. The chamber glowed with golden light, music filled the air, and laughter bounced off the walls. The historian leaned close and whispered, "Why do you hide your wars, human? Why do you hide your scars?" The ambassador turned slowly. For a moment, the light reflected in his eyes like cold fire. He gave a small smile and said only one line, "Because the galaxy is not ready to see them." The historian froze. His breath caught in his throat. The music around him faded into silence, as if the whole chamber had gone still. That night, he wrote a final warning in his journal. "The council mocks humanity, but I fear the day when humans stop hiding. They do not erase their past, they carry it inside them. And when that past is released, the galaxy will tremble." But the journal was never read. No one wanted to believe. The council laughed louder, and Earth kept smiling. But behind those smiles was a truth that would one day shatter the stars. And so, the council's greatest mistake grew in silence, underestimating a species that had been forged in fire, sharpened by pain, and prepared by history itself. They thought humanity's past was empty. But humanity's past was a weapon, and soon that weapon would be unleashed. From the council's greatest mistake, underestimating Earth, the Galactic Council chamber glowed with silver light. Great banners of alien empires hung from the ceiling, their colors shining proudly. Voices filled the air, sharp with arrogance and laughter. At the far end of the long table sat Earth's ambassador, dressed in plain gray as always. The humans never wore jewels. They never brought golden crowns or shining weapons. They sat quietly, listening while others argued. To the council, it was weakness. To humanity, it was patience. On that day, patience was tested. A trade agreement had been brought forward. The richest empires offered food, metals, and starship routes. Each species was called upon to state its value. When it was Earth's turn, the ambassador spoke simply. "We offer what we can, medicines, technology, art, and we ask only for fair trade in return." The hall fell silent for a moment. Then, one of the great counselors, a towering alien with skin like dark stone, leaned forward. His voice rumbled like thunder. "Fair trade? From Earth," he sneered. "Your people are fragile. Your armies are untested. You come here begging for a seat, and yet you offer nothing. You are not builders of empires. You are prey. Soft prey, dressed as diplomats. The chamber erupted in laughter. The sound echoed against the glass dome above, cruel and mocking. Many banged their claws or staffs on the floor in agreement. The sound grew louder, like a storm of scorn crashing down on Earth's flag. The human ambassador did not move. He did not shout. He did not strike back. He simply sat in silence while the storm of laughter raged, and then slowly he stood. His shadow stretched long against the shining floor, his face calm, almost too calm. He looked at the counselor who had insulted Earth, and in a voice so soft it cut through the noise like a blade, he said, "You will regret underestimating us." The chamber froze. The laughter died instantly. The words were not shouted, not screamed, but they carried a weight that pressed on every chest in the room. For a brief moment, the galaxy's most powerful leaders felt something they had never felt from humans before: fear. The counselor who had mocked Earth gave a short laugh, but it was nervous now, forced. "Empty words," he muttered. "The prey thinks it is a predator," but the silence that followed betrayed him. The other leaders did not laugh this time. They only watched the human, their eyes uneasy, their hands frozen above the table. The ambassador did not argue further. He bowed his head slightly, turned, and walked away. His footsteps echoed across the hall, steady, heavy, like the beat of a war drum. No one dared to speak until the doors closed behind him. For hours after, the chamber buzzed with whispers. Some dismissed the warning as arrogance. Others, especially those who had fought wars before, could not shake the tone of his voice. It was not the voice of prey. It was the voice of someone who knew war, someone who carried it inside him like a hidden blade. That night, the historian who had once warned about Earth wrote again in his journal, "The council laughs too quickly. The humans do not need to roar. Their silence is enough. A storm is gathering behind those quiet eyes, and we are too blind to see it." But again his words were ignored. The insult was forgotten by most. To them, it was nothing more than a moment of amusement in the council's long history. But for Earth, that insult was written in stone. Humans did not forget. They never forgot. And in the shadows of their homeworld, plans began to form. Strategies were whispered. Old war books were opened again. Soldiers trained harder, longer, with fire in their eyes. The council thought Earth had walked away defeated. But in truth, Earth had only begun to rise. The galaxy had mistaken silence for weakness. They would soon learn that silence was only the space before thunder, and that thunder was already on its way. From The Council's Greatest Mistake, Underestimating Earth. The insult to Earth faded from the Council's memory, but not from humanity's. While the galaxy laughed, Earth prepared, quietly, patiently. The test came sooner than anyone expected. At the edge of Council territory, a war had broken out. A rebel fleet rose against one of the strongest empires, burning colonies and shattering defenses. The Council called for aid. Every world sent ships and soldiers. And then, almost as a joke, one voice said, "Let the humans join us. If they are so eager for respect, let them prove themselves in war." The chamber echoed with cruel laughter. A vote was taken. The motion passed, and so Earth was sent into battle. But the Council did not send them to win. They sent them to fail. They gave humans the worst assignment: a broken front line, a dying colony, a sector where no one believed survival was possible. The other fleets were sent to the safe zones. The humans were sent to the slaughter. The galaxy waited to watch them break. But what happened shocked even the most seasoned warriors. When the human ships arrived, they did not move like prey. Their fleets did not scatter in panic. They moved with cold precision, like a hunting pack. At night, the colony burned under the glow of enemy fire. The rebels celebrated, believing the humans were too weak to resist. But then came the silence: no engines, no lights, no signals. The human fleet vanished into the dark. The rebels searched the skies, their scanners wide. Nothing. Empty space. And then, a shadow moved. A rebel ship exploded, then another, and another. The humans struck from the blackness, invisible until the very last second. They attacked not with brute force, but with patience, waiting for mistakes, striking where the enemy was blind. Their ships were smaller, weaker, but their minds were predators. On the ground, it was no different. Human soldiers fought with a style the galaxy had never seen. They blended into ruins, into smoke, into the dead silence of night. They turned broken streets into traps. They turned rubble into weapons. The rebels expected fear. They expected retreat. Instead, they found shadows that stalked them, whispers in the dark, bullets that came before footsteps. One rebel commander screamed into his comms, "They fight like demons. We cannot see them, but they see everything." The Council fleets, watching from afar, could not believe what their eyes recorded. This was not prey. This was not weakness. This was war, refined and perfected through centuries of survival. Within weeks, the rebels who had threatened an empire were broken. Their fleets burned. Their armies surrendered. Their leaders begged for mercy, and at the center of it all stood the humans, calm, silent, victorious. When the news reached the Council, the chamber fell into uneasy silence. There was no laughter this time. No insults, only whispers. How did they do it? With so few ships? With so little power? The historian who had warned them before closed his journal with shaking hands. He whispered to himself, "The humans have revealed only a fragment of their strength, and already the galaxy trembles." The human ambassador returned to the chamber weeks later. He did not boast. He did not demand. He simply placed the rebel flag, torn and blood-stained, on the table before the Council. Then he looked around the room, his calm voice cutting through the heavy silence. "You asked us to prove ourselves. We have." No one laughed this time. No one dared, because in their hearts, the counselors knew the truth. They had not tested humans. They had awakened them, and soon the galaxy would pay the price. From The Council's Greatest Mistake, Underestimating Earth, the galaxy could not forget the human victory. One colony saved. One rebellion crushed. One impossible battle turned into triumph. But what unsettled the Council most was not the victory itself. It was how it happened. The humans had shown only fragments of their power. Small fleets, limited weapons, and yet they had fought like shadows, striking with a precision that no other species could match. If that was only a glimpse, then what were they truly hiding? Whispers began to spread across the stars. Traders told tales of human fleets moving silently between worlds, their signals cloaked, their movements unseen. Captains swore they saw entire convoys vanish into the dark, as if swallowed by the void. Ghost fleets, they called them. Fleets that appeared without warning, struck, and then disappeared again. At first, the Council dismissed these stories as superstition. But then, reports grew darker. A spy was sent to Earth, one of the galaxy's finest, trained in infiltration and deception. He landed quietly, slipping past human eyes. For weeks, he sent back coded reports. He described strange training grounds, soldiers running through storms with iron determination, scientists working day and night, war machines hidden under cities. And then, his messages stopped. Silence. The Council waited. A search team was sent. They never returned. Whispers spread faster now. Some said the humans had discovered the spy and erased him without a trace. Others claimed he had seen something too terrible to report. A secret so great it had silenced him forever. Fear began to creep into the Council chamber. The laughter that once rang loud now came weaker, thinner. The word human no longer brought jokes. It brought silence. But Earth gave them nothing. Their ambassadors came as always, dressed in gray, speaking calmly of peace and cooperation. They never spoke of war, never threatened, never raised their voices. Yet behind those calm smiles, there was something the galaxy could not name. Patience, preparation, the waiting of a predator. The historian who had warned the Council before tried again. He stood before them, his voice shaking. "Do you not see? They are hiding their true strength. They are not weak. They are not prey. They are waiting. Every victory, every silence, it is part of something larger. The humans are not showing us their power. They are preparing to unleash it." But the Council turned away. Some still clung to arrogance. Others were afraid to admit the truth, and so the whispers grew. On distant colonies, soldiers spoke of human advisors who taught them strange tactics, fighting in silence, moving in shadows, striking only once, but with deadly accuracy. On trade routes, captains swore they saw human ships following them, lights off, drifting like ghosts in the dark. In council halls, ambassadors noticed the way human eyes scanned every corner, every detail, as if nothing escaped them. The galaxy was restless. One night, as the council debated, a sudden power failure shook the chamber. Lights flickered, voices shouted in confusion. When the glow returned, a message appeared on every screen. Never mistake silence for weakness. No one claimed responsibility. No one traced its source. But every counselor knew who it was meant for. The humans had not spoken it aloud. They didn't need to, because by now, the galaxy understood a terrible truth. When humans were silent, it was not peace. It was the space before the storm. And the storm was already coming. From The Council's Greatest Mistake, Underestimating Earth. The silence ended with fire. It began at the border worlds. One by one, colonies that had mocked Earth suddenly found their fleets burning. No warning, no declaration, just fire raining from the skies. The Council tried to respond. They sent armadas, fleets larger than anything humanity could possibly build, ships bristling with weapons, captains proud and unshaken. They expected a quick victory, a simple crushing of an upstart species. But when they entered human space, they found nothing. No colonies, no signals, just darkness. And then the attacks began. Human ships did not face them in open battle. They appeared from behind moons, from asteroid belts, from shadows where no scanners reached. Missiles struck with surgical precision, tearing apart the strongest vessels before they even saw their enemy. The Council fleets roared in anger, firing blindly into the dark. But humans had already vanished, leaving only silence. Until the next ambush. It was not war as the Council understood it. It was hunting. The historian, watching the reports, whispered to himself with trembling hands. They are not fighting for survival. They are fighting to teach us fear. And fear spread fast. Council generals, once proud, now shouted in panic. Entire fleets vanished. Colonies screamed for help that never came. The galaxy, which once laughed at Earth, now trembled under its shadow. The turning point came in the heart of Council space. The great chamber itself, the same hall where Earth had been mocked, was shaken by news that no one believed possible. The Council's strongest admiral, a warrior undefeated for 2 centuries, had fallen. His fleet had been trapped in a ring of fire, outmaneuvered and destroyed by humans who used tactics the Council could not even name. His flagship was found drifting, silent, its command bridge shattered. For the first time, the Council chamber knew silence not of arrogance, but of terror. The humans pressed forward, never stopping, never slowing. Their fleets moved like a storm, silent, precise, and merciless. Planets that resisted were crushed. Fortresses thought unbreakable fell in days. Entire species surrendered at the mere sight of the Earth flag rising above their skies. Yet through it all, the humans showed no joy. No celebration, only calm, cold determination. To them, this was not conquest. This was justice. The ambassador, who had once been insulted, stood again before the Council, but now the chamber was in ruins. Banners hung torn, walls cracked from bombardment. The proud leaders who had laughed at Earth sat broken, trembling in silence. The human's voice was calm, but it carried more weight than ever before. "You called us prey," he said. "You mocked our silence. You sent us to die. But we are not prey. We are survivors. We are predators. And today, you see the truth." No one dared to answer. No one dared to laugh. Outside, the skies of the capital world still burned with the glow of human ships. The Council's fleets were shattered, their generals gone, their power broken. The fall was complete. The galaxy had thought Earth weak, but in their arrogance they had woken the storm. And now the storm had consumed them. The Council's greatest mistake was not in mocking humanity. It was in giving humanity a reason to rise, and rise they did, until the galaxy itself trembled before them. From The Council's Greatest Mistake, Underestimating Earth, the war was over. The chamber of the Galactic Council, once bright and proud, now lay in ruins. The great pillars were cracked, banners torn, the air thick with the smoke of burning cities outside. The laughter that had once echoed here was gone forever. The council sat broken. Leaders of empires who once mocked Earth now trembled in silence, their eyes lowered. Their fleets were shattered, their armies scattered. Their pride crushed under the shadow of a world they had thought weak. And then the doors opened. The sound of footsteps echoed, steady, heavy, unhurried. The humans entered, not with golden robes or crowns, but in the same plain gray uniforms as always. They carried no trophies, no banners, no songs of victory. Only silence. At their front walked the ambassador, the same man who had once stood alone, mocked and insulted. His eyes were calm, but his presence filled the ruined hall like thunder. He stopped before the trembling council. For a long moment he said nothing. The silence pressed on every chest, heavier than any weapon. Finally he spoke. "You laughed at us," he said softly. "You called us prey. You gave us the most dangerous fronts, hoping we would fall. You believed kindness was weakness, silence was fear, patience was defeat." He looked slowly across the chamber, his gaze sharp as a blade. "You were wrong." No one dared to breathe. The counselors who once shouted with arrogance now bowed their heads like guilty children. The ambassador's voice grew colder but not louder. Humanity did not rise from comfort. We rose from fire, from storms, from hunger, from wars that nearly destroyed us again and again. We are not weak because we seek peace. We are strong because we have survived everything that tried to end us. And when you forced us to show that strength, you saw the truth. He gestured toward the broken chamber, the cracked walls, the leaders shaking in silence. This is the price of underestimation. The historian, sitting among them, felt tears burn his eyes. He had warned them. He had written of this day, and now, seeing it with his own eyes, he whispered, "The storm has passed, but the scars will never fade." The ambassador's words fell heavier now, like stones cast into the hearts of all who listened. Remember this: never mistake kindness for weakness. Never mistake silence for surrender. Humanity will forgive, but it will never again be underestimated. He turned and began to walk away. The human delegation followed, their footsteps echoing like the closing of a coffin. Behind them, the council remained silent. The great chamber, once filled with mocking laughter, now held only the weight of their greatest mistake. Outside, the skies of the capital world were quiet at last. The fires of war were dying, but in every corner of the galaxy the story spread, the story of Earth. The species the council had mocked, the prey that became the predator, the silence that became the storm, and with every telling, one lesson echoed louder than all others. Never underestimate humanity.